Stand by America. It's time for real television as Carpets brings you Movies Till the Sun Comes Up thing.
Welcome to Movies Till Dawn, a new podcast that's a safe space for filmmakers to talk about the fascinating and exasperating and always unusual and never quite the same thing twice process of creating motion pictures. I'm Raymond and I'm the show's Toastmaster General. We are back with a conversation with Randal Kleiser, a marvelous director with a big list of credits. And I'll start by saying that, you know, a lot of directors are very happy to have made a few movies that get out there and that people really like and, you know, and remember. And then there are some directors who go up, you know, to the pantheon of the Oscar-winning movies and the awards movies. But very few directors have made a movie that is a legend or a phenomenon. And Randal Kleiser has. It's called Grease. Randal directed the movie version of Grease that came out in 1978. It became the most successful movie, a musical of all time. I think it was surpassed about 20 years later by Les Mis. And beyond it just being a big financial success, Grease has had a life as a movie that it's never quit. It's successive generations have discovered it. Kids today like Grease, and that movie was made 40 years ago, and I guarantee you there are no movies from 1978 that kids today like. But they love Grease. And it was the 40th anniversary of the movie last year, and Randal told us that there was a big celebration screening in Florida. It was a massive, jammed event, and John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John showed up, and they sang and danced, and everyone went crazy. So, so that's Grease. But of course, he's done so many other films: The Blue Lagoon, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, White Fang, and we talk about a lot of these. Now, I just gave you all this info on Grease. It's not in part one of this conversation. I just led with it. In fact, because people always lead with it, I decided to close the interview with it, so you'll hear about Grease in part two. Here, in this chapter of our conversation, you'll hear a little bit about how Randal went to USC and he was in George Lucas's class, and how his master thesis film, Peach, led to him getting a job directing television, and the movies of the week were his training ground. Now, a lot of people don't remember the movies of the week, MOWs, and sometimes called the disease of the weeks. These movies were all, the three networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, all made movies of the week. And so there's a lot of them out there. And they were sort of the B-unit training ground of the 1970s and 80s. And a lot of good directors came from that world, that training ground. Randal did several of them, which we talk about, and probably one of the most famous of the MOWs, Boy in the Plastic Bubble, starring John Travolta, and that led to Grease. But we talk about that. We talk about how, I find this wonderful, how DeMille's The Ten Commandments was the movie that inspired him to want to be a filmmaker. I met Randal in the late 1990s when I was hired to do a polish on a thriller that he was directing called Shadow of Doubt. It became a little more than a polish. It became like a major rewrite. And he was great to work with. He was super collaborative and super calm in somewhat stormy seas occasionally. But that's how we met, and we've stayed friends on and off. So here's part one of a conversation I had high up in the Hollywood Hills in November 2019 with my friend and collaborator, Randal Kleiser. I've been teaching at AFI, and I was saying to my students, I don't understand really the kind of the fetish that some people still have for 35 millimeter. Mm-hmm. All I remember about shooting 35 was the Bond company guy freaking out every day because I shot more than 3 takes or something. Right, Do you have feelings about that whole? Because you're very digitally, advanced.
Yes. Well, the thing I like about digital is that it doesn't scratch, it doesn't weave. It's kind of like it'll still be there. Hopefully, if we find a way to preserve these files, but. I look at old films; they always are scratchy, and they're got what they gone magenta or something like that. The film, so I'm happy with digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the last time you shot 35?
Oh, probably over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe more. Yeah. I've recently done something, though, which is not even film or normal digital. I did a volumetrically captured music video at Intel Studios, where they have this huge dome. It's one of the bigger sound stages. They have like 70 cameras around that are filming. We had 20 dancers in the middle, and then they're volumetrically captured so that when it's finished, they become like holograms and they're dancing around. I can show it to you later if you want to see
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
It's downstairs.
Well, you've gotten into this super cutting edge stuff. I remember seeing you at that virtual reality. What was it? Kind of convention that they were giving, and you had. I was trying to explain it to someone because it was a kind of a mind control experiment. I remember thinking, what was that? Tell me about that.
Well, we did a series called Defrost that we did 11 episodes. Each one was 5 minutes because people like to be in the headsets for short periods of time usually. And I took the first episode to Sundance, and then we made more, and we took them to Cannes, and then now we finished them. And actually, this Friday night they're going to be showing them on a dome, which is an interesting idea. It's designed to be on the headset, this virtual reality headset, where you're 360, 3D looking all around. But we've reformatted it experimentally to see if it works on a dome with a big audience. So it's going to be fun.
When you say the dome, do you mean like as if it were a surround, like a cinerama?
Yeah, like a planetarium.
Right.
We ran the Producers Guild had an evening where they were showing immersive cinema on domes, and we went to the Griffith Planetarium and we ran our pilot on the dome, and it worked. So now on this Friday we're going to run all the episodes on the dome.
Oh wow, I'm going to come see that.
Yeah, it's at the Downtown LA Film Festival. But the point is that it was designed for one format, and now it might work for another. So we're going to see.
Right. Is that what Vistorama? Is that the...
That Vistorama HD was basically trying to do Cinerama with HD back in the day. And it's just taking a lens, a super wide lens, and then cutting the top and bottom off and projecting on a sphere,
well, convex sort of.
Yeah, that's right. It was imitating Cinerama, but it didn't go anywhere. I mean, it was. I just think you would have had to have a whole theater company do it, AMC or something. But it was an idea and it worked, but it didn't jump.
How did you get started with that?
I think that my brother Jeff is a visual effects supervisor, and he's 8 years younger than me. And all my career, he's always been the guy who was saying, "Hey, look at this, look at this." Like, he showed me virtual reality for the first time in like 2013 or something. And when we did Flight of the Navigator, he showed me how you do morphing and image-based lighting and things like that. So I was always adapting what he was showing me to my films and projects. So that's why I'm slightly ahead of the normal curve.
I think I saw virtual reality for the first time around then too,
Yeah.
and I would have guessed by now. It's a kind of disturbing experience, but a fascinating one, because you really are. I think I walked into the Apollo, the spaceship, and you kind of do get lost. You looking around. You're in 360. You're in. I think they use the original sound as part of it, and it is a kind of fascinating and kind of, but at the same time a little off-putting in a way. I wondered why it hadn't taken off, why it hadn't become a bigger thing by now.
Two reasons, I think. One, a lot of people don't like to wear something heavy on their face, and two, they don't want to sit for a long time where they're cut off from everything. And
claustrophobia, basically.
Yeah, I think when they get to be like wraparound sunglasses, that maybe it'll have a resurgence. Mm-hmm. And when it's cheap and easy, then I think it'll come back. What I found when I first saw it, which was the Tuscan villa in 3D in virtual reality, where you could walk around this villa and wherever you wanted to go and go upstairs and stuff like that. It was all 3D, it looked very real. I thought this is a great thing for performers, and so that's when I wrote Defrost, which was actually a screenplay I had written at USC when I was there, like 50 years ago, about someone being frozen and brought back to life. And so I dusted off that old screenplay and I turned it into a virtual reality project where the viewer becomes the woman who's been frozen. And so you look down and you see your body in a wheelchair, and the family comes, because when you can't speak back when you're in virtual reality, and you can't really walk, at least with the technology that we were working with. And so I adapted the script to that. So all the actors are come up and look right in your face and they're talking to you. And what's extraordinary is when these actors have eye contact with you in virtual reality, it doesn't look like an actor, it looks like a real person right there talking to you. So it's very effective.
Right.
And I don't know, have you tried that at all with the narrative stuff?
I have. Well, I've no experience shooting it. But when I went to, I think it was a convention in film and video convention in Las Vegas, and they had several different VR things set up. And what I found was the one film that they made that was narrative was kind of the least effective to me. And I think what they hadn't yet grappled with, it was a short film, was they were still trying to they were still using conventional cutting techniques. So if you make an over the shoulder and then you cut to the reverse, suddenly the whole room around you has spun around. So I found a lot of the time I was spinning around looking at my new environment.
I know. Yeah,
it was weird. I couldn't focus on the story, let me put it that way.
Well, we did all ours in single takes, so that no takes, no cuts. So you really feel like you're there, and it is reality.
Yeah.
I can show you that too before you leave.
Yeah, I'd love to see. Yeah, I'd love to.
Got my little thing downstairs all set to go.
You mentioned USC, and I know you went there. Were you in George Lucas's film? Is that Urban Myth?
Absolutely. Yeah, he was my roommate in college, and we've been friends ever since. And he actually had a reunion this last summer, a few months ago in July. He invited a whole bunch of us from school, a handful, Caleb Deschanel and Walter Murch and Willard Hike, Frank Marshall, Kathy Kennedy, to his villa in Italy for 10 days.
How fantastic.
Oh, God, that was great. Yeah, so we all kind of like had a reunion and talked about the old days. And,
were you in the same class?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was a little ahead, but it was so small then. USC Film School was so small then that everybody was around to each other. Now it's huge, and there's like all kinds of different buildings.
Sure. Yeah. Was that when I was growing up? My father was friends with several USC professors at the time. Did you know Erwin Blacker?
Of course, yes. He was a writing professor.
Yeah.
I have all great memories of Erwin. Really tough with everybody. And I remember, though, he told me one of my scripts was a piece of shit, but very commercial.
And you said thank you to that odd compliment?
Yes. Yeah. He said, you'll go places, but I don't think your stuff is very good.
Oh, dear.
That's okay.
I'm not sure that you can say that as a professor to a student now without incurring the possibility of a lawsuit.
You're right. Well, now also the students can judge the professors, which didn't happen back then, Each professor gets graded by the students. Did you know?
Sort of like how Uber works.
Yeah.
Your passenger.
Or Airbnb.
Right.
Do they do that at AFI?
I don't know. Now I'm terrified. I better find that out.
Yes.
Yeah, I've only been there a few weeks.
See how nice they are to you. Right.
Yeah, Erwin and of course for years our very close family friends were Mort Zarkov.
Oh, sure. Mort's alive still, I think.
He is.
Yeah. Mort was my advisor on my master's thesis film, Peach, which got my career going. And it was a film I did after I tried to do a master's thesis film based on a local theater company's kind of arty theater production called Voyages, very, very out there. And I was doing it with all kinds of special effects. It was going to be very hard to connect to arty type film. And I got halfway through it and ran out of money. I couldn't get any grants or anything, so I went to my friend, director Curtis Harrington. Remember him?
Sure.
And I said, hey, Curtis, I'm stuck. I have this half-done master's thesis. What am I going to do? And he said, dump it and write something personal. And so I did. I wrote a film about my grandmother, visiting my grandmother in a nursing home on Christmas Day. And that film became my master's thesis, and Mort was the guy who was on it, and it turned out great. It got me a contract at Universal, and it was selected for the National Registry.
Oh, family is here this time, Peach. Damien and Jerry and John and even Greg has flown all the way from California.
How are you, Nana?
Oh, I'm fine.
And you know who I am?
No.
You're kidding. Come on. What's my name?
Sure you remember, Doris. You were just talking to me about it the other day, remember? Have a nice visit. I don't know.
Well, it's actually, Peach is the first of your films that I ever saw because
yeah?
they showed it to us in 7th grade.
Really? Where was this?
Well, in a public school that is best forgotten. But for some reason that I had a good teacher who said, I want to show you a film about aging and about
cool.
family. And so I remember seeing it when I was maybe 12 years old or so.
It's funny because just yesterday we finally are going to put it on Amazon Prime. We're going to finally put it out there because it's been sitting in my closet for a long time.
Yeah, I remember seeing Peach, and I think that must have been around, so it was a few years after it was made, because you then made, I think from there, you made a couple of TV movies.
Yes.
This is a genre that I don't know why they've all... Shouldn't there be a cable channel devoted to the network TV movies of the 70s and 80s? Because there's so many of them.
You've got a great idea. Boy.
But they don't turn up anywhere. And you made one of the classics, Boy in a Plastic Bubble.
You know what? I've been trying to figure out where the negative is for that, because the only existing copies are like off of the... like a air off the air. You know,
someone's VHS copy.
Yeah, it's in public domain, and so if I could get the negative and scan it with 4K, I mean, it would be great to get that out, because it's just horrible quality of it, and I've been trying to figure out who owns the negative now.
The tests are in, and you're pregnant. Congratulations. Mr. and Mrs. Lubitsch, he was born exactly like your first son, with no amenities whatsoever.
I'm so sorry.
Give me a kiss. Oh, boy.
Do you know how much your mommy and daddy love you? Do you? Do you really love that? Do you know how much mommy and daddy love you?
And who may not for years to come is finally coming home for the first time today.
He's not getting any air. Get it out, baby.
Come on.
Oh, Toddy. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. Are you okay? Oh. Let me go! Let me go! Oh, he's not hurting you. He's just playing with you.
The TV movie was sort of the kind of, it replaced the studio B movie as the kind of the place younger filmmakers could get their first job directing, if they were that fortunate. And so Peach got you, which
Marcus
was the...
Welby, actually. I started with Marcus Welby because Peach was about a nursing home, and Marcus Welby was the doctor, so they threw me there. But yeah, the Starsky and Hutch and the Rookies and all that stuff. But then first TV movie was called All Together Now, another one that's sort of buried in the vault somewhere that no one's seen. John Rubinstein was the star, and it was about a family and, you know, emotional family dramas. That's another reason why Peach got me that. But yeah, the TV movies, the disease of the week, they used to call
for a while,
it.
yeah, right.
You know, and I think Lifetime now does those kind of movies, you know.
Yeah, I guess you could say they're the...
Women, usually it's the stars, or the women are the stars, and it's all about emotional dramas and stuff.
And they were super tight schedules too, right?
I think 14 days or something, yeah.
Wow. Is that what you had for Boy in a Plastic Bubble?
Yeah. We shot Travolta on a Saturday because he was doing Welcome Back, Kotter at the same time. So we had to fit into Welcome Back, Kotter's schedule.
Well, so how many days did you have him?
I guess it was somewhat, there was a little bit of an overlap, which is why we had to work on a Saturday. I think maybe it was during his hiatus, but it started up again or something.
Right. Yeah, it's funny too because I think I saw that in school as well. So you had an educational, without knowing it, you had a presence in the public school system.
The other film that's the TV movie that's been shown a lot is The Gathering with Edward Asner and Maureen Stapleton, which is kind of a Christmas special that they run practically every year. About a man dying of cancer and getting his family together. So another thing that Peach led to.
Well, it's interesting because when I was looking at your filmography again before coming here, I saw there is a strain running through your film of sympathy for the ill, and I would take it from Peach all the way to It's My Party, which you made 30 years later, I guess.
Yes, and even to this virtual reality project, Defrost. Same thing. Yeah, you're right. It's My Party was done, in 96, I think it was. Yeah, that was based on a real event that happened, and so. But I'm trying to think of. Yeah, there is a theme.
And Boy in the Plastic Bubble, for that matter. Mm-hmm. That was based on a real kid. David Vedder.
I think so. He died.
Did you have any what was the development of that? Were you brought in, or was it something you worked on? Or
it was. I think Joe Morgenstern wrote the original script, and then Douglas Day Stewart was hired to work with the script and do a new version, and I was brought on at that point to work with Doug, and we got along really well. I hired him later to do the Blue Lagoon screenplay, but. We did research on how these kids have to be kept in these areas, and we used the actual lanier, I think it's called, the lanier room, where it's a room with plastic doors, and then one area is open, and they have the wind blowing out so that no germs can get in. So that it's an open door, but it's keeps the germs out. We used the actual thing at the end of the movie when he walks out.
Was there any, because I know there's always some they didn't get it right segment did the medical community, were they for it? Did they like your film?
I don't remember. That was too long ago, and I don't recall any reaction from the medical community right now. Maybe if I racked my brain, I would.
But it certainly was, if not controversial, at least a very high-profile TV movie of that era.
Yeah, I had a whole thing when Travolta came out of the bubble, and he went over and he touched the trees, and I had him going around touching and feeling things, and Aaron Spelling looked at the cut and said, "Get to the girl." So I had to cut out all my arty stuff of him exploring the environment.
That's funny. Well, that's why he's Aaron Spelling,
yes, exactly.
And I'm not. I would have said, "Oh, do more of that experimental stuff, Randal."
Exactly.
Yeah, the TV movie. So was that the last of that year? Did you go from that to Greece? I guess.
After The Gathering, I went to Greece.
Oh, Gathering was then, yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Runaway.
Oh, okay.
That one, I tried to find a clip to show on a reel, and I couldn't find anything that I wanted to show. It's the one movie that I just thought, nothing here works.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that they're not. Do the networks own them? I don't know. That they've just kind of vanished, and I know there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah, the Movie of the Week channel would be a huge hit. Huge hit.
Well, let's do it.
Okay. Start with Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I want to find out where that negative is.
I wonder if it also might be parked somewhere online.
Not in
the strangest things turn up on YouTube. People put up old video cassettes.
Not a high res. I don't think they ever did a high res scan. It's just the old VHS versions are everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But before we leave USC, because it's obviously you were there in like kind of the heyday, the USC that everyone now knows is really based on the US because that's where Lucas and you and all these kids came from. Where did you meet? You've had this unique relationship with Nina Foch for so much of your life. Where did that start?
Well, I saw her in The Ten Commandments, which is the movie that made me want to become a director when I saw the opening of the Red Sea. And then I came to USC and heard she was actually teaching in the drama department. I was 18, a freshman, and I wasn't supposed to be able to get into that class, but I weaseled my way in, and I just, was staggered by how smart she was and how she just had this great way of teaching. And so we were friends and for about 40 years. And it took me many, many decades to get her to let us film her class. And when we finally did, we started to cut it together as a teaching tool. And she would come into the editing room and say, "Oh, no, don't use that part because I'm being mean to that Asian girl." So I'm going to put this on hold till she is gone to a better place, and then we can do it right. So that's what we did. We waited, and now it has all the warts and everything. And her toughness was wonderful. The way she would rip into students was the way she taught them, and it was great. And it's fun to watch too.
You clearly weren't daunted by these professors who
I was. I mean, she was terrifying. When I was in her class, it was very scary. But once I was out, then I realized what her technique was and how great it was. And now this teaching video is online at ninafashproject.com, and you can either buy the DVD or the online version. And I think it's the best thing that any director, writer, actor, singer, animator can do. We have on that website, we have all these different people who were taught by her saying what she taught them. And it was a labor of love, and it turned out great. It's on Amazon and has like all 5-star reviews. It's one of the best things I've done.
And you stayed, but you stayed very. She feels like a mentor of yours.
Oh yeah, and I used to babysit her son, and her son is now a good friend, and his son now wants to be an actor, and I've been helping him get an agent and things like that.
Oh, great. Well, I remember when we worked together.
Yeah.
You put her in.
That's right.
On Shadow of Doubt.
Shadow of Doubt. Yes, that's right. I loved working with her. My favorite moment was when we did the scene with all the black tie people, and she was dressing them as the mother of the candidate, and I was up on a crane on one end, and she was way, way at the other end at a podium, and I was saying, "Hey, Nina, isn't this cool?" Because I never thought when I saw her in the 10 Commandments that I would be on a crane directing her with 1,000 extras.
And on a crane is perfect because that's where you picture DeMille directing.
Yes, exactly.
From a crane with a bullhorn. And
exactly. It was this incredible moment. Yeah.
So what was it about 10 Commandments that would have spoken to you?
Well, I was 10, and it was the pageantry, the theatrics, the over-the-top costume designs, the Cecil B. DeMille narrating it in this very, very, dramatic fashion, and coming out on the stage in the front and talking to the audience and saying, "You're going to see this." And I said, "Oh, that's a director. I didn't know movies were made by anybody." So it was very clear. This man came out and said, "I'm going to show you this movie I made," and then you see the movie, and the music is amazing. The drama is so clear. Everything. All the characters are super clear. They're like day glow, everything dialed up. So for a 10-year-old, it's just dazzling. I found it dazzling.
Paramount Pictures is proud to announce the return of the greatest motion picture of all time, Cecil B. DeMille's masterpiece, The 10 Commandments. Intact, uncut, the original film, acclaimed as a supreme emotional experience. What a story it tells. What loves it unveils. What majesty it encompasses. What drama it unfolds. One of the greatest adventure stories ever hurled from any book.
Well, that was the era of the biblical epic.
Yeah.
Was that your first genre that you followed? The King of Kings and
I loved
the
all
greatest
that.
story ever told?
It was so big and exciting, and as a kid, that just felt wonderful. Later when I look back at the 10 Commandments, there's a lot of really, really silly stuff in it. It's way over the top performances, but as a kid, it was perfect.
Yeah. So if that one, and you didn't come from any showbiz background, I don't believe. So if you're 10 years old and you go home after seeing a biblical epic and you tell your parents, "I want to be a director." Remember George Cukor saying in an interview that when he told his parents he wanted to be, I guess, a theater director, He said, I might as well have told them I want to be a drug pusher. They were horrified by the thought for some reason. What was your parents' reaction?
I was really more interested in being an animator because Walt Disney had his show every week, The Wonderful World of Disney. I'm sure you saw that.
Okay.
Disney's Wonderful World of Color. And every week they would show how things are done. It was the only place you could see that. There was no YouTube, there was no behind-the-scenes footage of anything except on the Disney thing. So I watched how they made animated cartoons, how they made Sleeping Beauty particularly, and with the animation multi-plane camera table where they could move trees at different levels so it looked like depth, you know? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And so in shop I made one at 13, an animation multi-plane camera table. And I was shooting with an 8mm camera, shooting straight down. And I made animated cells with getting those plastic things that you use to cover paper, and inking on one side and painting on the other. And I did this whole long animated project and filmed it of this person walking through the woods with all the things, the trees and the depth and everything. And I got it back and it was all, you know, it's unwatchable, but I tried.
Did that end your career as an animator, or is that when you moved to live action?
What ended my career as an animator was I did finally make an animated 5-minute film in 8mm, regular 8, not super. And our family drove across the country to Disney Studios, and I went to the gardens with my little yellow Kodak box and said, I want to show this to Walt Disney. And they said, do you have an appointment? No. And so I was turned away, and that ended my career.
That broke your heart.
Yes. I don't know why my parents didn't say, this isn't going to work.
Well, maybe they thought that meant you would leave showbiz once and for all, right?
Maybe, but I went back and started making live-action films in the basement in 8mm. A lot of people did that, like Spielberg, I think, did, and nowadays every kid does it with video. But
you just need a phone.
Yeah, but in those days it was kind of unusual because you had to buy the film, you had to take it to the drugstore and have it developed, and then it came back, and then you had to cut it physically, and there was, if you wanted to put sound on it, you had to send it away to get a stripe on it, and then get the stripe.
Oh, see that? Yeah, that's.
It was really hard.
The next wave after that was what I grew up with, which was Super 8. Super 8 was sound on film. So you didn't, and the mic was built into the camera.
Perfect.
But it sort of, because it actually, you heard the camera constantly through the whole thing.
Wasn't it like 10 frames ahead?
Yeah.
Or something like, so if you made a cut, you just cut.
You remember?
I do remember all that stuff.
But I do, and the editing machine was this little plastic thing with the rewinds on it. But it all worked. I loved using it, and you could actually piece together your little Super 8 movie, which I did all through grade school and junior high school.
But it was so much harder than it is today.
Oh, yeah.
Really much harder. You know, you had to really want to do it then. Now it's just like, bam, easy.
Well, in a sense, too, I wonder, and I hate to hear myself sound this way, but in the good old days... But did slowing it down actually perhaps have its own value that might be a little stronger? Because it took a long time for me to piece together a 10-minute short comedy. For some reason, I was always doing remakes of Three Stooges movies that I liked with my friends.
Yes. You had to think ahead, and you had to work on every little bit of it, and then what I had to do was to loop it. Loop all the stuff, and because we didn't have direct sound, so I had to bring people in and have them try to match the lips, and you could only do it once because if you made a mistake, you had to go back to the beginning. So it was really, really deadly. What were your 8mm shorts about? Well, I did one called Jungle Detective, which was about a man who had a detective agency in the middle of the jungle.
Sounds like a Three Stooges movie.
And he gets a call that prisoners escaped from a penitentiary nearby, and he has to track him down, and he happens to be an exact double of him. So he goes into the jungle and finds the guy, and they have a fight where the two actors are playing the same part, and they go to a big temple where he pulls a diamond out, and the whole temple falls down on him. So I had forced perspective and matte shots and split screens and all that
Oh,
stuff.
how crazy. So this was basically training for Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yes, exactly.
Or I guess even before that,
Yes.
you were working with effects.
Yeah, and the other one I did was When the Cat's Away, which was about kids who have a party when their parents go away for a weekend, and all the hijinks that happen.
Hijinks ensue.
Yes, hijinks ensue. And that was about an hour long, and I did that one in CinemaScope. I got an anamorphic lens that I shot on the 8mm camera, and then we put it on the projector and made it widescreen.
Wow.
And I put a big widescreen in my backyard, and
So that's the precursor to Vistarama.
Yeah,
For you.
exactly.
I see these themes running through your life.
It's true. That was exactly it. I still have the lens, the kinescope lens, and it's pretty fun. And then the last day of senior year in high school, I had all my senior class come to the backyard with blankets, and the big screen was set up, and I ran this thing that I worked on all year, and I just gotten into USC, and then they thought of me as some kind of weirdo until that moment, and then they said, "Oh, that's what you were doing."
You became the coolest kid in
Yes,
school at the end of the whole
last
term.
day of school. Yes.
So did you use that to get into USC?
Mm-hmm. Well, no. Actually, the one I used to get into USC was called Hands in Innocence, which was based. I used to work with emotionally disturbed children. My father was a psychologist at a school, and so I went summers teaching, or not teaching, but making lanyards with emotionally disturbed children. And I got to know one of those kids, and I made a movie about what I thought. I just observed her, and then I made a movie about what she was thinking, and that's the movie that got me into USC. It's done in black and white, and she has a breakdown, and it goes to negative, and she's going crazy, and then it goes back to black and white, stuff like that.
So that's interesting because you've worked a lot with kids.
Yeah. The worst time was Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, because we had a 2-year-old as the lead, and we used brothers, identical twins, and they had no idea they were even in a movie, so I had to trick them into doing everything.
From Walt Disney Pictures, the man who did the unthinkable.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kid.
Is at it again.
I blew up the baby.
Rick Moranis.
Put Daddy down.
Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Stop before someone gets hurt.
Oh.
Rated PG. Starts Friday, July 17th.
And the parents were behind this,
They were
obviously.
behind, often off camera, and I'd tell them, okay. The problem was that they learned the term rolling, and when they said rolling, they would say, "No rolling." And then they learned, "I want to go to my trailer." And so I had to find tricks to not say rolling, and just to make a circular motion with my finger, and not do sticks at the beginning, and often have this person play Kumbaya on a guitar, and then try to get them to look in the right direction. And keep the crew away so that they weren't aware that they were being filmed.
That everyone was staring at them.
Yeah, that was really hard. Yeah.
I've found on the couple of occasions I've worked with kids that it's an entirely different story if they trust and like the actor in the scene with them.
Yeah.
That's who they really
Yeah.
relate to, and I wondered how much fun Rick Moranis would have.
He was great. He would improvise with the kid, and there's a lot of improv in the film, back and forth, like a whole dialogue scene that he's talking to the kid, and the kid's making up the dialogue. It was great. It was perfect. Rick was perfect.
I remember first seeing Rick Moranis on the SCTV, and I didn't know who he was at all, and he instantly became one of my favorite comedians. I said, this guy can do anything. He could do. He did the strangest things. He would do Mel Torme singing the Star Spangled Banner with like bebop phrasing, and I said, where does this stuff come from this guy? I've always been so fascinated by him as an artist.
As his career to raise his kids, I understand, and I don't know whether he's coming back or not. I don't know.
Yeah,
he was easy to work with, very professional. Very snarky and fun.
Yeah, that movie has. I remember showing it to my kid when he was pretty young.
Yeah.
But it has that sense of spirit and playfulness that I think I had to assume he brought a lot of that. That you were giving him a lot of leeway as an actor.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. He was a good improver.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually find it scarier working with kids than with adult actors, which says a lot. Because like you're saying, you kind of have to trick them into it. You have to kind of find them, the sweet spot of making them comfortable, and yet also there's got to be some discipline going on about what you're doing.
Have you ever worked with animals?
Well, no, I was going to ask you about that because you've worked with plenty.
Kids are bad.
You've worked with wolves and dogs and
hippos, pigs.
Well, tell me about that. That's White Fang we're talking about.
There comes a time in a young man's life.
You up there for the gold?
You got that right.
Well, it's out there, just waiting for somebody to pick it up.
When he must face the world alone. He must discover who is the enemy and who is his friend. Both man and wolf must learn the first rule of the wild: survival. And as they grow, they will discover that the greatest secret of survival is friendship.
All he needs is a little bit of kindness.
In a land where nature was the greatest challenge, they shared an incredible adventure.
Holy mackerel.
Burn him out.
From Jack London's thrilling story,
Holy biscuits!
Walt Disney Pictures presents Ethan Hawke of Dead Poets Society and one extraordinary wolf. In Jack London's White Fang, together they found the courage to survive.
I think I had seen the movie The Bear. Do you remember that? The Bear?
No,
Jean-Jacques Annaud, I think, did it. I saw The Bear, and what I was amazed by was that he had used the animals like actors and had done dolly shots with them and had them hit marks and stuff. And I thought that was so cool. So I wanted to do it that way. And so I worked with the trainers about having training the dogs to start at one place and stop at another and have the dolly track go with it so that they're performing. And it was all done with clickers and training. And one key scene in White Fang was when he is attacked by the pit bull, and it grabs his neck, and it's in the book. It's a very vivid passage from the book where it's all from White Fang's point of view about what was going on and having this dog around his neck. So I wanted to shoot that, and to do that, we today, of course, I think they're remaking it, and they're going to do it with CGI wolves and.
Right, there's no CGI at that point.
No CGI, so we had to do it real, and to do it. They raised a puppy pit bull and a puppy wolf from birth, and they put a leather strap around the wolf's neck, and the pit bull was trained to always hang on to that, so that when they grew up and the movie was made, this is a matter of months, that we shot the scene and it looked really scary because it looked like it went right for it and it looked really horrifying, but they were just playing this thing that they had done since birth.
Well, so how long was the project in development? Did you have to raise several of them along the way and
No.
start over again if the movie got postponed? Or
I was brought in to replace Chris Menges. I think the project had gotten over budget and out of hand because there was some kind of problem with one of the producers who selected the location and made it all start to happen. And it was on a place you couldn't reach by plane or by road. You could only get there by boat. I was brought in to fix or to take over White Fang, and so everything was sort of pretty far along. And the trainer Clint Rao had done the Journey of Natty Gann with Jeremy Kagan,
mm-hmm.
and we used the same wolf from that. So, but he was the one who came up with the idea of raising the pit bull and the wolf to do the shot.
Yeah, I believe the wolf dog was named Jed.
Jed, yes.
And he's a professional actor dog.
He was.
He appears
yes.
in other. Well, he was. Yeah.
yes. He and Clint was very respectful of the dog and treated him like a star. I mean, one day he came up to me and said, Jed can't work today. He's depressed. And I thought, Okay. You know, and he had to have a special trailer. And yeah, he was treated well, but he was the star of the movie. So.
What was in his trailer?
Dog food.
That was it.
But you know,
did he have hanger-on dogs or? You know?
Well, there was several matching dogs.
Right.
And there's one particular sequence where Ethan Hawke is supposed to tame White Fang, and it was also from the book, a very specific passage from the book that I wanted to make sure worked, and so we used 3 wolves. One which was skitterish, one which was semi-tame, and then Jed at the end. And by cutting back and forth with Ethan as he's trying to talk to him, it looks like the wolf is calming down, but actually it's 3 totally separate wolves that don't even look alike. And oftentimes I show that clip for students, and I say, how do you think we did this? And they all have these theories, but nobody notices that they're totally different wolves.
Right.
And then you look at it again, and they go, oh yeah, I get it.
That's the end of the first part of my conversation with Randal Kleiser. I hope you enjoy part 2. If you enjoyed listening to Movies Till Dawn, you can visit my blog where I post videos related to the subjects that I interview. Just go to moviestildawn.blogspot.com. You can find this podcast at moviestilldawnpodcast.com, but we're also available on most of your favorite podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spotify, and YouTube. I would love to hear from you. If you're inspired to reach out, you can email me at moviestilldawnpodcast@gmail.com. And please feel free to follow me on Twitter at ReelRDEF. That's ReelRDEF. And if you have a film geek in your life, or even just a mildly curious fan, spread the word that we're here.